we're heading into the Christmas New Year period where everybody in the city goes out and puts up a tent beside a lake or whatever. The farmers don't.
Really?
Yeah, no, they have to keep working.
Oh,
but
God.
I know that we really need to talk about the fact that they do need to focus and take time out.
Yes, definitely. It's something that I think everyone should be doing, but especially, you know, it sounds like the farming community doesn't give themselves too much of an opportunity to have a break. It's pretty hard, I think, to work 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And I do think it's super important that people recognize that there is such a thing as burnout, and it is really possible that you can become both mentally and physically exhausted in any role, especially a role as demanding as farming and agriculture.
I mean, the thing with farming this time of year is you've got irrigation, you've got cropping, they're all flat out, you've got dairying and you're having to milk your cows twice a day.
Right.
You've got the sheep farmers who are shearing. I mean, it's just, it must psychologically be quite damning for the farmer,
yeah.
because, you know, everybody's, the television and the radio and the newspaper, it's all talking about holidays.
Yeah, and it's probably quite heartbreaking in a way because, you know, I know what it's like to have a to-do list on a day, and sometimes that can be quite daunting. But to have that to-do list for pretty much a whole season can probably be quite difficult. And knowing that while you're working away very hard, the other people of the community are out holidaying and having a nice old time. I do think that obviously when times are really, really busy like this, there are ways to get away just briefly, even if it's for a night. You know, I made a comment to someone earlier, you can just pop out a couple of hours out of town, get a small little cabin or something for a night or two, just to get yourself away from the daily grind and also to have something to look forward to. But at the same time, this would probably be the perfect time to start planning for what I guess you could call the quieter months.
Yes, which they are.
Which isn't, it's a hard thing to say, you know, in the farming community that there is ever a quiet time. But I do think that if it is absolutely unrealistic to leave your farm when you're doing your, like you said, your irrigation and all of the summer planning and that sort of stuff, it is a great time to start looking at having a break, you know, down the track to say, right, well, I'm getting up so early every day. I'm doing this every day, going through the motions that I do every day. But you know what? In April, in May, in June, I know that I'm actually going to reward myself for all the hard work that I've been putting in.
Go somewhere and get the sun on your back.
Yeah, and like I've said before, Rob, it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be, you know, Spain or Mexico. It can be right on our doorstep. It can be across to Australia. You know, I mean, there's a sale right now for flights that are approximately about $415 return to $450 return to Brisbane. And that's for January, you know, late January. So there's going to be opportunity to get away in, you know, the winter months here in New Zealand. And really the big thing people need to remember is planning is key when you're wanting to get best value for money, because a big issue that we've talked about is how can you say you can go on holiday if you don't have all the money to do it? Well, there are ways to actually get reasonably priced deals, and the further out you look at booking, the better the deal will be. And then again, the planning is half the fun, and then you've also got all that to look forward to, so it kind of can justify why you're getting up and doing what you're doing each day.
I'm going to ask you a really curly question. But
Okay.
Travel agents such as yourselves are still being used because you guys do all the hard work.
Yeah, it's actually funny you say that because some people do sort of say, why would we use a travel agent when we can just book online? And the interesting thing is a lot of people don't realize that pretty much anything you get on the internet is what we can access as well. And you know, we use a myriad of websites, both online and through, you know, in-house suppliers. And when you've got someone such as a farmer who is probably spending a great deal of time working, do they have time to actually sit down and research hundreds of hotels or different airfares, different routings, different deals? And usually the answer is probably no, which is probably the reason they're not actually booking the holidays, because they're not planning, and then it gets time, and then you know, we've run out of time, and now the prices are too heavy and too expensive. And so, you know, that's where we can kind of help to take the stress out of it, because our goal, my goal specifically, is I want to be able to get people away for the best deal possible and make sure that they have an amazing experience, whether their goal is just to relax, or their goal is to sightsee, or their goal is to just get away from what they're doing at the time. Yeah.
Do people come in to you and say, oh, this is my budget, what can I do for that?
Yeah, some people will. Some people don't really know what to expect, so they'll come in and they'll say, I want to go here. What can we do that for? Or some people will say, we want to spend this much money. Where can we go? And that's the interesting thing, being in this industry in the travel industry for so long. I've sort of developed, as have my colleagues at World Travelers, we've developed the ability to tailor packages and holidays to people however it suits them. So if someone comes in and they say, we have no idea how much this is going to cost us, can you give us an estimate? And then we give them the estimate and they go, that's great, or that's too much, or whatever. Then we can sort of work back and say, okay, well, if that's too much, then what isn't too much, and what can we get you for what you want? I think there's sort of a misconception that if people come in and give someone a budget, they're going to work to the very maximum of that budget. And that's not sort of how it works. It's really a puzzle to put together. So if your airfares cost $2,000 and your budget is $3,000, well, we know we have $1,000 to spend on accommodations. So
up to $1,000.
Up to $1,000, exactly, and transfers and insurance. So it really helps us to outline what can be achieved for the client at the time.
I think the main thing, as far as you're concerned, is that you don't go online for your accountant or your lawyer. You actually go and see them, don't you?
Yeah, and I mean, I think, like I said, I do think that obviously there are a lot of things you can do online nowadays. Booking travel is definitely one of them. And some people, they love sitting on the computer for hours and looking for the best deals and that sort of stuff. One of the downsides, of course, is if you do book online with multiple sources and websites, and if something goes wrong, it's sort of on your shoulders to fix it. So if there's a strike on an airline, it's your job to organize reaccommodating yourself onto a different flight. If you get to your accommodation and it's not what it was represented as in the photographs, the only person that you can go to is the hotel provider. Whereas we're the ones who, not only do we take the hassle out of planning the trip, we also try to take the hassle out of any issues that eventuate while you're on your trip. So again, for someone like a farmer or someone in the agricultural industry who is exhausted and tired and just want their holiday, they don't want to go on their holiday and then be stressed on their holiday because something's gone wrong. That's where you can leave us to deal with all that. We sort of try to take the stress out of the whole experience.
Do travel agents load the airfares for their commission? Because that's a concept that people have.
I think that's, that is a misconception. And it certainly, depends on what agency you go to. And there will be an element of, most agencies, if they do charge a service fee, will explain that. They'll put that on the invoice and that sort of thing. But, the way it works is most airlines actually will pay the commission back to the agent. So if you go online and you spend $2,000 on an airfare, you'll spend $2,000 with us as well. It's just the airline doesn't keep it all. So it depends on what you value as your situation. Do you value your time and a stressless experience? Taking the time to research, do you have that time? Do you want to spend it? Do you want all the responsibility on your shoulders if something does go wrong? Knowing that, pretty much we can all get the same airfares and information as most anyone out there. So
brilliant, Nicole.
That's what we are.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, no worries.
So anticipation, as they say, is half of the delight.